Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. My name is Joy. Recently, Dave Chappelle came out and said in his latest comedy special for Netflix, been doing those things since around 2016, I think. He posted a clip on his Instagram. In the clip, he says that he asked the streaming service, Netflix that is, to take down the 3 seasons of The Chappelle Show, which have been available to watch on Netflix since early November. I think it was like November 2nd that I saw it come out, or that the clip said. According to Complex.com, Netflix pulled Chappelle's show from its streaming library after Dave Chappelle asked them to, based on the fact that he wasn't receiving any royalties. In a video posted to his Instagram, Chappelle railed against CBS Viacom for selling the rights to stream the series to Netflix without him seeing any portion of the proceeds. I think I saw somewhere that it's also not just that it was on Netflix, but it was on HBO Max at least, and maybe Prime too. In the 18-minute long clip, which was filmed at a recent stand-up performance, Chappelle discussed what happened with his beloved show. They, Viacom CBS, didn't have to pay me because I signed the contract, Chappelle said. But is that right? I found out that these people were streaming my work and they never had to ask me or they never had to tell me. Perfectly legal because I signed the contract. But is that right? He then praised Netflix because when all those bad things happened to me, they didn't exist. So Netflix wasn't around when he signed the Chappelle Show contract. And quote, and when I found out they were streaming Chappelle's show, I was furious. How could they not know? So you know what I did? I called them and I told them that this makes me feel bad. End quote, he added. And you want to know what they did? They agreed that they would take it off their platform just so I could feel better. Interesting. And Dave Chappelle comes out with the truth. Netflix has been approached and they didn't have a comment. They haven't returned comment about this situation. But now you have to recall, if you will, that this isn't the first black comedian who has had a beef with Netflix. A couple years back, we know that Monique sued Netflix for race and gender discrimination. And this is almost 2 years after calling for a boycott against the streaming giant for allegedly lowballing her. Now, I remember back when that came out, folks were calling Monique everything but a child of God, saying, why would you expect us to boycott Netflix just because you couldn't get a contract? And that was really the sentiment. Let me see this article. Let me see. This is from USA.com. In a lawsuit Monique filed in 2019, the Oscar award-winning comedian claims the company offered her significantly less money for a comedy special in comparison to her fellow male and white comedians. Quote, despite Monique's extensive resume and documented history of comedic success, when Netflix presented her with an offer of employment for an exclusive stand-up special, Netflix made a lowball offer that was only a fraction of what Netflix paid other non-black female comedians. The lawsuit says, citing multi-million-dollar offers for talent including Dave Chappelle, Amy Schumer, and Ricky Gervais. Now, I'll be honest, I've seen one thing with Ricky Gervais, and it was, what was that? Something about lying. It was that movie about that was like the invention of lying or something like that. Amy Schumer, I may have watched a couple of her episodes of her show on Comedy Central if it came on after that other show I can't even think of none of these shows names. That's how long ago this was. So the fact that they're getting these offers, and the black population in America has always been the largest consumer of premium network TV. So streaming services like the Netflix. You ever see the demographic of content on Stars? That's all geared towards black people. HBO, Showtime, Cinemax, the same thing. Their content is primarily focused on black audiences with the sporting events, the sporting documentaries, the comedy specials. And so for them to then give non-black comedians like Amy Schumer and Ricky Gervais more money doesn't make sense in my business brain. Let me continue the article. In 2018, Netflix offered Monique $500,000 for a comedy special and refused to negotiate further, the lawsuit said, adding that the streamer, Netflix, offered Schumer 26 times more per show than Monique. Now, let's all be honest here, folks. Let's be honest here. And again, citing the statistics that I just gave you, look them up. I talked about this in my BET video, the rise and fall of BET, what happened. I talked about while black consumers are the largest segment of the TV viewing population, For that same reason, advertisers lowball offers to pay for black content because we're such dedicated viewers. And so, again, this doesn't make sense for me. So the other thing is I can't help but compare Dave's case with his royalties and asking Netflix to take it down, and Monique in her compensation and asking Netflix to pay her more. Now, of course, there are differences between Dave and Monique's beefs with Netflix. They're not the same contract at all. You could argue, you could claim that in Dave's case, Netflix isn't the bad guy. Viacom is. Viacom's the bad guy because they sold the rights to license. They sold the licenses to Chappelle's show, the rights to stream it without paying him. And Netflix had nothing to do with that. Well, in here, I guess Netflix could technically pay him while they stream it instead of taking it down. So that's one thing. Others might say also that Dave is clearly more popular than Monique. So, of course, he would get a better offer. He'd get a better deal. And Netflix would cave to him. Well, I would say for me, neither one of those arguments actually hold water. First, the only reason, if you ask me, that Netflix isn't the bad guy, the only reason they capitulated to Dave is because if they didn't, you can rest assured that Dave would have walked out of any remaining commitments he has with Netflix. And I mentioned before, he's had deals with them since 2016. He's done at least 3 comedy specials, won Emmys for him. If they didn't agree to what he said, them asking him, he would have left that contract, left that deal, just like he did the Chappelle show and Comedy Central when he flew to Africa. Back in, what was that? Early 2000s? Early 2000s? You don't think he would have did the same thing to Netflix if they tried to play him? The second thing is I can't argue in good conscience that Dave Chappelle is actually bigger than Monique. Especially from a black ADOS perspective. I mean, I'm equally interested I would be equally interested in seeing both of them live. I think Monique actually is probably funnier than Dave Chappelle. Would I want to sit in the front row with either of them? Hell no, because they ain't about to crack on me. Both had their own show. Monique had the Parkers. Dave had the Chappelle show. The Parkers just came to Netflix with a lot of fanfare, and many folks will argue up and down that the Parkers is actually better than Monique. Of course, the Parkers was a spinoff of Monique. I say Monique. Of course, the Parkers is a spinoff of Moesha. That's what I meant to say. Folks will say, I haven't watched either, but that's what I hear. Parkers is better than Moesha. Dave has Grammys and Emmys. Monique has an Oscar. So they've both won these mainstream awards. If you actually look at the list of awards, Monique, quantity-wise, has many more. But that's not what we're talking about. And like I said, they're both recognizable public figures, at least from our perspective, the audience that I'm talking to, black folks out there, black Americans. They both had tremendous success. I remember, so I would say probably my first time seeing Dave Chappelle or remembering him was actually in movies. So, on Nutty Professor. And then I remember Monique from Comedy Central, from Comic View, hosting Comic View, and then just her acting, and then being a queen of comedy. And then Chappelle show. They both have their accolades. The only difference is that folks online and across media have treated them differently. Treated Monique and Dave differently with their confrontations with Netflix. The vast majority of folks and across media at the time, and maybe the sentiment has changed a bit now, call Monique ungrateful, angry, difficult to work with. While Dave has pretty much been lauded, commended for standing up against media giants like Netflix, Viacom, HBO. And like I said, the opposite happened for Monique. Dave has been trending for 2 days. No one online is saying Dave should have read his contract and he should quit whining. And Netflix is not fighting Dave Chappelle in court. And I don't know that Dave Chappelle has a lawsuit with Viacom or HBO Max either. Netflix quietly removed the Chappelle show. This is what I'm talking late November. And it came on in early November. They quietly removed it in these 2 weeks. As soon as Dave Chappelle found out and asked, they removed it. And like I said, they refused to respond to press inquiries. So they're not even trying to recognize this one way or the other. Monique, on the other hand, was vilified, shunned from the industry, and she's still in court with Netflix 2 to 3 years later. What explains the difference? Could be a few things, I think. From what I've seen, and I don't follow Dave Chappelle, but he seems he's close to a lot of powerful looking white dudes in Hollywood. The Seinfelds and the Ricky Gervaises. Y'all know Netflix would love to have a Seinfeld on their network, their streaming service, or an Office, the British version. So he's got those connections. He's pals with those kind of dudes. Could also be that Monique came first, and Netflix doesn't want to end up in court again and blow their deal with Dave Chappelle. Like, maybe they learned from the Monique situation. They're saying, okay, you know, we want to do right this time. We got this new diversity officer, whatever. Could be what I said before, that Monique is being painted as the angry black woman. And Dave gets to be the friendly, yet gullible black man caricature. Neither one of those are true of who they are. But again, you know, how far away are we from these people? How do we really know who they are? We don't. But that's what they get painted up: angry black woman and gullible, friendly, gentle giant. He's lanky and tall. Either way, I don't really care about any of those in particular. None of them hold significance with me, because at the end of the day, black woman, black man, Dave Chappelle, Monique, Zonique, T.I., you gotta bring his whole family. It does not matter who is trying to do a deal with Netflix. All black people who are doing these deals need to keep their foot on Netflix's neck. Just like you see the boot on the neck, think about that. It's not in us to be like, I'm going to do for me and everybody else got to do for themselves. I feel like that's not our pathology. We're communal people, familial people who have been brought into capitalist society. Not that I necessarily agree with, but I'm just saying, I don't think that's how it used to work. The other part is that we can see, whether by hook or by crook, Netflix is going to get theirs. So they get to keep this deal with that they have with Dave Chappelle, where they air in his comedy specials. They get to look like the good guys in this situation. And Monique still does not have redemption because she's still in court with them. How many articles and headline news have you seen about that amidst the fanfare about Dave Chappelle? The only way we, ADOS, are going to get ours as individual black people, no matter what industry you're in, is if we support each other collectively. So stop banging on Monique. Leave her. I mean, come on now. We all knew she was right from the get-go. Just admit it. You got to support each other collectively. When these demands are made against the powers that be, we got to back them up. Of course. But that's what I got, folks. Tell me what you think. Y'all think Netflix will ultimately settle their suit with Monique? You want to say, okay, you're right, Monique, we concede. What about Chappelle's contract? All's fair in love and war, right? Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.